Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's a great turnout. Thank you very much. Call to order of a work session of Goodyear City Council, Monday, 28 June 2010. All items, there's one item listed for discussion only. No action can or will be taken. And that subject will be led by Mike Svets, and it's review and overview of the Loma Park Master Plan.
Great. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and of course the audience. Very much appreciate your time and attention to the Loma Park Master Plan that we're going to walk through here very quickly. To my right is Tim Starkey. He was the project manager involved from Cohen Van Loo, the landscape architect who helped facilitate the meetings and put together the plan that you all have received. This evening, very quickly, we'll give you a general understanding of the master plan process, background regarding how the project actually came to light, walk you through the assessment of Loma Park as it is today, and then turn it over to Tim to walk you through the actual master plan process, as well as the final master plan, draft master plan that has come out. We have a timeline at the end, and we'll take any questions or comments you have. To get started, just very quickly, to give you an understanding of why the formal master planning process, we were definitely looking to provide the community with a consistent, transparent, and open process for this master plan. It helps ensure best management practices when it comes to operations for the park, as well as planning. You don't want to plan something that later on you can't operate or maintain. And we took very good, we addressed that issue very detail-oriented throughout the process with the community. We ensure that they're created within the context of the park master plan. The last thing you want is to have every park be the same. You want some uniqueness to every neighborhood and or community park. And it also kind of helps fit into the long-term strategy of park planning and CIP funding. Loma Linda is one of our original city parks. It was actually deeded to the city through a plat acceptance back in the 1950s. The park was designated as Level 1 through the master planning process in the mid-2000s, which just basically rated it in need of repair and renovation. The park, for the most part, received fair to poor ratings when it went through that assessment. The interesting and very, very unique partnership, though, with this master plan is what kind of makes it stand on its own. Back in December of 2009, St. John Vianney approached us in terms of trying to see if there were any plans for the park. This was in an effort to get an understanding of how a park plan and any improvements with that plan would try to tie into any plans that they had for their campus, including the school and the church and parking. They agreed to fund the master plan effort, upwards of $20,000. We received a discount from Cohen Van Loo on the process, and we're very, very appreciative of St. John Vianney's efforts. Both St. John Vianney financially as well as in participation through the master plan process was very evident. They very much were a stakeholder. They were not a driver of the master plan. They were a stakeholder, as were all the other neighbors as part of the process. Just very quickly, these are a couple of photos of Loma Linda. As I explained before, it had received a fair to a poor rating. Another couple of photos, you can see a Ramada. The playground equipment is very well outdated, with sand being the surface, and of course some declining trees. This is the context for the park. It is adjacent just west to the St. John Vianney campus, where you have the church and the school, as well as within, depends on the club you're using, but either a driver or a wedge to each of the two schools that front Central Avenue. You can also see how it is enveloped by the neighborhood and folks that live in and around there. Some more photos of the park, just to give you an understanding. All of this is in the master plan document that you had received. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Tim. He will walk you through the public master plan process. We held 3 meetings which resulted in this. We're very appreciative to the community and the neighbors who participated throughout the process. This is their vision for their park. We get to maintain it, we get to operate it, but they get to use it. And so we want to make sure that their vision for the park is realized in its entirety as best as we possibly can. So I'll turn it over to Tim at this time.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, Mayor and City Council, and to those who are attending tonight. And also thank you to those who did attend. They made my job very easy. We had a lot of participation in this process, and really this is their park, and so I'm very thankful for that participation. As Mike said, we went through the site assessment and survey process, really gathering information so that we could begin our design. And this slide here is the culmination of that first meeting. The exhibits that you saw on previous slides we presented at the first public meeting. And then we worked with the people who were attending, with the residents, and tried to establish the goals for the park that we're going to guide our design. These are really the big picture issues. As the design process continues on, we can start to get into those smaller details of, is it a slide versus a spring toy, what are the colors, things like that. These are the big picture issues, and the 4 things that stood out, and we went through pages and pages of issues that were brought up, and we categorized them into these 4 issues. Goal number 1, we want a safe and secure community park. A lot of concern about how the park was being used, how the park was lit, issues like that, and they wanted to make sure that these improvements addressed those issues. Goal number 2 was make our park a community point of pride. That was very evident as we went through the planning process. They were proud of their historic neighborhood, they were proud of their park, and they wanted the park to reflect their unique area and be something that when people come to it, because it does have a pool facility, and you get a lot of people who had come to a neighborhood park that wouldn't normally come to this type of park, they really wanted it to reflect their character. And that's part of goal number 3 as well, maintain our unique and historic neighborhood character. They talked about their park versus some of the newer parks that we're developing out with newer subdivisions that we're growing around the city, around the town. And goal number 4, we want to provide increased opportunities for our community. We talked a lot about being a multi-age community, and so the facility needed to provide opportunities both for young people and for couples and adults and for older people as well. On the next slide, after we established those goals, we came back and had our first, is our second public meeting, but our first design charrette. In the format of that, we reviewed the goals and we reviewed the site assessment, and then we broke the attendees down into 3 table groups of about 5 to 7 people at each group, and we had a design facilitator that was at each table as well. And really just let them work through their table groups on what amenities, how they wanted the park to be programmed, how they wanted the park to function. And you can see the results just very schematically sketched on these three concepts. Then each table got up at the end of the meeting, they presented their concepts and the program elements of their design, and after that we held voting. So that's what the green and red dots are on each of the plans. They voted green on things they liked, they voted red on things that they didn't like, and we had a debrief session afterwards to talk about what the themes were so that we could carry those forward into the design concept. You can see here our firm then took these 3 design concepts, took the goals that we had established and all of the information that we had gathered up until this point, and then developed the first draft master plan. That master plan then was presented at our 3rd and final public meeting, and we invited it. Really, it was a very open forum, a Q&A, and we let the participants ask questions, make comments, tell me the things that they liked and didn't like. And generally, there was a lot of support for the plan, so we were very pleased with that. And that was, again, due to the great participation throughout the entire process. The issues that came up are shown there. A lot of them were about maintenance and funding and making sure that once this park plan was implemented, that it, how was the vision going to be realized? Obviously, issues with parking and lighting came up again. One change to the design we did make talked about the functionality of the courts. It was a minor thing that came up. Currently, there's 2 tennis courts there, and as we work through the design, how are we going to make that more of a multi-use court? So we took the comments that were garnered from that third public meeting, and we provided the preferred master plan, which we're going to walk through tonight. These are the issues. If you're following along in your report, Chapter 7, it's on page 13. We're following the same format, and we'll point out each of the main amenity areas. In the plan, parking was one of the issues that came up through meetings with the public. Additional parking, because of the unique character of this park with the pool facility and with the community center, parking shortages did happen. So we added a parking area, and we also added a drop-off, so we extended that parking area up. Currently, where the gray asphalt is shown that's not highlighted in red, that's the existing parking lot. So we've added parking along the eastern boundary, and we've added 28 parking spaces. And the drop-off is more centralized to the center of the park. We'd heard comments about people driving over the turf areas to get closer to the Ramada and didn't want to have to walk so far with all their picnic and their gear and their kids and the strollers. So we tried to locate that closer to the center of the park.
If I could add one thing, the parking that runs into the middle of the park does also provide is it does provide the police an opportunity to get into the park from a security standpoint. Now they're fairly limited unless they four-wheel it across the turf. They're fairly limited in terms of access to the interior of the park.
The next area is the splash pad. This was an item that had come up as well. Currently, to the west of the existing pool, there's a waiting area, a waiting pool that's being underutilized. The existing pool is a fee access. What was proposed out of this plan is a splash pad be located where the waiting pool currently is. That will allow it to use the same equipment location, so it would fit well within that area. And the splash pad would be accessible both from the pool as well as from the park and play areas. One of the main comments that came up several times was the community center expansion. Currently, the building is one room of about 90 occupants. It has a small kitchen facility and a restroom that's accessible from the indoors. Only accessible from the indoors because the community center is leased out, or you can rent it. And so if you have a function, you don't want park people coming in and using that same restroom facility while it's being used for another function. So there was some talk about how do we expand that, make it more flexible, can we add a room? This is a level of detail that we could get further and further into, and so schematically we're showing an expansion of about one room, which would double the current indoor occupancy, some expansion with some patio space along the back that overlooks the multi-use court area, and a lot of indoor-outdoor spaces. That was a comment that came up a lot. If we wanted to have a wedding or a function or reception, we want some indoor and outdoor spaces as well, so we're showing some expanded patio area just outside the community center.
And for the facility maintenance in the audience, the one thing we wanted to add was this is, again, a concept for what the facility might look like, but we all know that it may be in the best interest, instead of just expanding onto an existing building, that we may raise that existing building and turn around and build something new. It makes a lot of sense from a system standpoint as well as a maintenance standpoint.
Right. Currently in the, we're on to these, here we are. Currently the multi-use courts, there's two existing tennis courts that are fenced in, and there was talk about how to make that, again, more functional for other uses. Typically a neighborhood park like this would have a basketball court or maybe a volleyball court. Tennis courts are typically found more in a sort of a larger park system, but because this is historical, it was something that we did want to leave there. It was something that was being used. So changing this into more of a multi-use court, replacing one of the tennis courts with a basketball court. There were other alternate layouts we looked at where we actually overlaid the basketball courts with the tennis, but there was some concern that there would be some conflict of use. So this was the schematic design that came out of the public meetings, and we would move forward with then. And finally, in the center of the park, replacing the existing play area, with a new play facility. The current one does not have seating and or shade, providing a play area that's both multi-age, so for younger children and older children, providing shade, providing ample seating around the perimeter. It's in close proximity to the group ramada, also close to the drop-off, so if you're bringing gear or children, it's not quite a haul to get to the playground area. All of the amenities are pretty much located in this southern section. So we moved to the north. That provided us an opportunity to open that up and provide more of a turf play area. Another thing that had come up was additional pavilions. Currently, there was the one pavilion. It was a large pavilion, but it only had one picnic table in it. So providing additional picnic pavilions with additional picnic opportunities. The large turf area provides an opportunity. Oh, I'm sorry. Back up here, the central walkway. This is one of the main design elements that really came out of the public meetings, and I think it fits really well with this sort of heritage park or this historic concept, is this soft paved trail, very wide, with benches that line either side, and a double row of trees providing shade over this walkway, really connecting the west and east ends, so the drop-off over to the pavilion, to the multi-use courts. This would be the main central spine to the park. Just to the north of the walkway then are the field area. One of the comments that had came up during the public meetings is there's turf areas, but they were bisected by sidewalks. A lot of trees are in the way. So while it was a nice picnic feel, it didn't allow for any kind of sports, playing catch, because there was a lot of walkways and trees in the way. So trying to maintain those trees along the perimeter, but provide a large open space so that there could be, frisbees, fly a kite, some pickup game of football, something like that. In addition, it was fenced because of our concern of the proximity to the streets. We didn't want kids running out into the streets chasing balls, but it keeps all that secure and a little more safe inside that field area. Also within that field area were the added sand volleyball court adjacent to one of the picnic ramadas. Another request of that came out of the public meetings was a place to walk along the perimeter trail, walk around the park, maybe do some jogging, even have some exercise stations. So combining that with the central corridor, that central spine of the park, there's a soft paved trail that loops the entire park. Again, ample tree shade along that park with some stations, either seating or some exercise stations or some stretching stations. The loop itself works out to almost exactly a quarter of a mile, and that was one of the things people were interested in being able to know, is it a quarter mile? Can I run it? So that I know how far I am jogging. And finally, one element that was very important was the mature trees to help differentiate this park and show the age of the park and give it that regal feel. And we wanted to maintain that. You'd seen from some earlier pictures, several of the trees are in decline and reaching their lifespan. The city has already initiated a program where some trees are being planted in between. We'd recommend that be continued and potentially even do a double row of trees along the major pathways to provide shading so you can walk under that arcade of trees. One optional thing that we'll mention, the park is currently being irrigated with non-potable or flood irrigation. While that's very cost effective and it was something that we certainly wanted to look at trying to maintain, one of the other concerns was flooding the park and then rendering the field or portions of the park unusable for several days afterwards. So one optional thing that we did look at is potentially capturing that non-potable water into a storage system that can then be pumped into a traditional irrigation system, so you get the benefits of having the non-potable water, which is a more sustainable and green approach, but also being able to irrigate it with traditional spray heads out in the turf areas so that it's not shut down for days.
If we can afford it through fundraising and other options, we definitely want to go this route. It's non-potable water, it's not drinking water, and it obviously is very environmental sensitive, while at the same time, as Tim said, providing more use of the park from basically March through October. To kind of take over for Tim, thank you very much. General cost estimate, again, this is very preliminary. It's based on master plan and just based on current trends. The general park phase renovations would be in the neighborhood of $1.3 million. Community center pool area, about $704,000. Irrigation storage system in the mid-400s. Again, as we move through schematic design and detailed design and construction documents for such a project, obviously these numbers would become much more refined. Our next steps, one thing I do want to identify is St. John Vianney has been very, very instrumental in pulling this master plan off, as I mentioned earlier, and we have already met with St. John Vianney and the neighborhood to begin discussions regarding fundraising committee. We have each entity, including myself, have been tasked with efforts in going forward with trying to put together a fundraising committee. We also will be meeting internally this week with other city staff to identify possible grants for elements of the park that Tim just showed you. Obviously, there are grants that will take into account the entire park as a whole, but there may be grants available for the irrigation storage, playgrounds, and so on and so forth. We will bring back to City Council the master plan adoption on August 23rd, and we will obviously look, depending upon how fundraising goes, we will look to potentially phase improvements. The adoption of the master plan will give us an opportunity to get into a future CIP recommendation to be put in front of City Council at some point. We obviously will continue to engage the public as the process moves forward, and the ability to engage the public in picking out different things, playground equipment, the type of benches they want to see, splash pad elements, how the renovations or a new community center would play out. At that time, we would obviously look to move forward with completed park improvements, and it's our hope and our goal to have this completed within 2 to 3 years. That does sound very aggressive, especially in this economy, but we don't want a $20,000 pretty picture sitting on people's shelves collecting dust. So it is our commitment to try and move this forward as quickly as we can and get it completed. Any questions?
Let me start by, Father, why don't you want to say anything? You're integral
Always.
to this. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be making all this progress, so.
I mean, Father doesn't have anything to say.
On behalf of a lot of St. John Vianney that came this evening, and also the neighborhood, since we're members of the neighborhood as well, we have just really been blessed by this process with the work of Cohen Bamboo and also Mike Spetz from the Parks and Rec Department, who really gave themselves fully to this process. I think I can speak hopefully for the neighborhood and for the church, and we believe that this process has brought us closer together as a community, and we see it as a great plan for us to grow as a neighborhood, to prepare for our future as a church, prepare for our future as a neighborhood, and perhaps an example for other places in the country of how, when we face a lot of issues, we can get together as private and public entities to come together. So really, I think we're excited. I think that's seen by how many of us came this evening to throw our support behind this. And Mike took my line, but I like it. It's a good line. We don't want a $20,000 pretty picture. We're here because we want to see this through to completion, and we hope that you'll be our collaborators on that. So, thank you.
Thank you, and good luck in your future. We're going to miss you. Would anyone from the public like to comment? Okay. Anyone? Did I see someone that did? Okay.
I don't need a standard. I just wanted to make a comment.
They'll have to come up here.
Very exciting. We've been talking about.
Do you want to come up forward?
I know where the power is.
Oh, jeez, this is scary.
You never turned down that offer before.
Okay.
And for the record, you need to identify yourself, so it's in the minutes.
All right. My name is Diane Crone, and I am the president of the Historic Neighborhood Alliance.
And my comment, I didn't think about it, so it's going to be sort of brainless, but that's okay. I'm very excited about this. We've been talking about doing something for that park for some time. Ever since we started the Alliance, we've been talking about doing something for that park. And there's been conversations here and there, and then it's always dead-ended. So when Father got going on this was like really exciting that we would have a partner in this, and they were so, very excited. And the fact that they put a good chunk of money in it is also exciting, and it shows their dedication to it. So I would love to see that the city also shares that dedication to it, because I understand that, because I've lived here long enough to see the population change so quickly, and you people have had to deal with so many developers coming on and things going on, that it would seem that the older sections have not had the attention that was necessary. And so now the fact that new construction has slowed down, even though the monies aren't there, we can still be creative and come up with some things for our community that are long overdue. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments?
I just was absolutely blown away when I saw it, and I think you might be out of a job. The public had, the community had all pretty much the same plans. I mean, together. I was very impressed at how that all came together as a public partnership. I like the fact you're looking to get rid of the irrigation. I don't know if that brings mosquitoes to the neighborhood, if that bothers the people, because I know we've had some issues with other bugs around lately. So I was just very impressed with it, and that park can be such a crown jewel there because it's got the swimming pool that so many people who don't live there, you put that community center there. I mean, that's a great place for people to have parties. I was just impressed, and I think Diane said it right. That area needs a little TLC. So congratulations. Great job.
Thank you. Councilmember Osborne, any comments?
Well, I don't live in the neighborhood and I don't go to the church. However, I do feel a little ownership. It's my YMCA Teen Action Council that adopted Loma Linda back in October. And what I think is awesome is that the vision and the public input that you guys have all put together, if it matters at all, I did my own little survey with the teens, and you guys are on the same track. They came up with things that you guys also came up with. They wanted to see the tennis court divided with tennis and basketball, and they wanted more ramadas. And, I mean, there's just on and on. I was just amazed to see all the things that you guys had, similarities. The boys did, however, say that you needed a riding shovel toy and that there needed to be more swings. And I will also tell you that I have been one of those mean moms out there in the middle of the park making people leave the park with their car parked in the center of the park, and I've made them leave because they wanted to listen to their music. so I'm glad that we're all in this together. But I might add that on a city end, just in this last year, we had the park study done, and it was indicated that Central Goodyear has the most children and has the least amount of desirable parks. So this is just right in par of the course that these things need to be done. So I understand we won't have $1.5 million by Friday when we have to go clean the park. I really wish we could rather get out of, the early morning clean, but that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Souza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, I am the city representative for the historic Goodyear. And while this was all transpiring, I happened to be in the hospital several times, as a matter of fact. And when Father called me shortly after I got out of the hospital and said that this was going on, I said, well, what is the reaction of the folks that attend these meetings? He says, all of them are for it. I said, you got to be kidding me. Because every time, we have issues, the folks are rightfully so are very demanding because they want services that are rightfully theirs as members of our community. So as Diane pointed out, it's the historic Goodyear time to get some advantage where we've been taking care of properties outside of historic Goodyear. So I'm positive, with the cooperation between St. John Vianney and the city, that in all probability this will be an accomplishment, and I will be one of the proponents to move it along. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Pizzillo?
You know, it's kind of hard to add to what everybody has said, but from my perspective, I always think it's great when you get this kind of response from community. You know, I mean, you have neighborhoods, and you know, Goodyear is a collection, a variety of neighborhoods. But this is a sense of community when you get the neighborhoods involved in putting together these type of plans. And in my opinion, this is great. You know, I wish we had more people like this showing up regular at the meetings that are participating to try to improve the quality of life of our citizens. So, you know, I'm behind you 100% on this. When I first saw it, when we met with Father Drew, it was great giving me some of this information. And the best part I loved about it was that it was the community that was kicking in and giving the ideas and how we could improve our neighborhood. And I can tell you from areas I grew up back in the East, once you get the revitalization of the parks and the community involvement, then everything improves. The neighborhood, everything starts to get better within that. So this is just one step in improving that. So my tip of the hat to you. Great job.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. When Father Drew came to me and said he had an idea, could we get somebody in the city to listen to it? And I said, yeah, I know some people. We get a hold of Mike and we get this thing going. And so it was a great idea. I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going this far. And I think it can go farther and faster. This has been great. I am the city representative for the North Subdivision. I see some of those people sitting here from the North Subdivision, and at the last meeting, I guess I complained a little to them that we weren't, as a city, doing enough for historic Goodyear, and this will answer a lot of this. And I want to encourage city staff, city manager, that we need to move on this and move on this as quickly as we can, because we need to start taking care of historic Goodyear, and let's get this thing on the road so that we can all be proud of having a city park in the center of the city and the section of the city where it all started. This was Goodyear at the very beginning, and this is where we need to turn some of our interest and our money toward making this happen. So I'm all for this, and I will support this 100%. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was terribly pleased when Mike and Father sat down and briefed me, and along with two other council people, on this concept. And, you know, it is so important now and in the future for a public-private partnership, because we, as a city, we can't do everything alone any longer. So we have to join hands and extend that dollar bill to try to do the best job that we can. And this is just going to benefit all, as you said, all ages. When you think of the school children and that benefit, you think about the neighborhood, you think about downtown. They're looking to revive it, and I just think this is another element that will extend to that area. So, Father, thank you. I'm not going to thank you for leaving, but I understand you're going to stay connected with it, and if you don't, we'll find you. So again, I appreciate staff's work and all the community, and you're coming together. It's just a joyful feeling. We can look out across all these faces and know you are all for one common goal, and I thank you for that.
Okay, to all the neighbors of Loma Linda Park, we call it Historic Goodyear today. You're a great part of the community of Goodyear, and you make us better, and it's a joy to work with many of you. So thank you very much for coming out tonight, and thank you for all you do day in and day out. On that committee, I'd like to be an adjunct member because I do have fundraising thoughts that might be helpful in this particular arena.
Thank you very much.
And just a personal note, when I came on duty here in '99, most of the members of council were your neighbors. If you go back 5-10 years before that, they were all your neighbors. Everybody came from that small area. And I know them today, I knew them then. They are delighted with this. So it makes me feel good that they're happy, and they deserve to be, and so do you. So thank you very much for all you've done. Great job, Mike.
Thank you.
Good job. Thanks, Father. Meeting's adjourned.